Making bread is an exercise in becoming. Water, flour, salt, and yeast come together to be greater than the sum of their parts, mixing and fermenting, rising and falling, pulling, shaping, resting. It is absolutely cliche to find poetry in bread making, but I've always been so scared of the way that bread is alive and predicated on growth and becoming more, just like people. But when the bread doesn't rise like I expected, what am I going to do? I might have been taught to go to find something to blame. There was a heat wave, it's the weather's fault. The yeast went bad earlier than the date stamped on the packet, or I didn't measure something quite right. The tendency to turn the story of the bread into a catastrophe can be strong. It's easy to get caught up in the desire to achieve some kind of perfection that I have in my own mind's eye. But if I can take a step back, remember why I was making it, I can write a different story. And if the bread can ever forgive me, it can be transformed into something unexpected. Pizza, maybe a dinner roll. It's not that bread can be forgiving, I'm sorry, forgive me for that, but that we have immense capacity to be forgiving of ourselves. Just sometimes we need an excuse to allow ourselves to do that, to go past blame, and accept that things will not always become what we thought that they would. People, ourselves included, will grow and thrive in ways that we couldn't imagine. It isn't a catastrophe. It's the world unfolding, and us all becoming what we needed to be. This morning, I invite you to join me in lighting a chalice, a symbol of our community, with a poem by Mandy Hines titled Becoming. I was a girl of butterflies and dragonfly wings, a slight wonder who had tea parties with birds and discussed the stars. I became a dark, stormy night, trying to be a lighthouse while drowning at sea. Now I am a healer, chasing fireflies with a butterfly net, lighting fires that burn hotter than the sun. And when the dark clouds roll in, I wait for the gentle patter of raindrops to wash away my fears, so I can just be who I am.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from?
Life is a
Where
riddle
are
and a
we
mystery.
going? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going?
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Where do we come from?
Where do we
What
come
are we
from?
going?
Where are we going? What are we
Mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery.
Life is a riddle and a mystery.
Where do we come from? Where are we going?
from? What are we? Where are we going?
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community Church of Santa Monica. I'm Aubrey Sassoon. I'm your worship associate for this morning. The rest of the worship team and I are delighted to be joining you in our online sanctuary this morning. If you're new to our community, please know that while our building is closed, we still are here. And there are many ways to learn more about us and become involved. We offer a multitude of programs to serve the needs of our congregation and to be of service to the larger world. If you're interested in learning more, please join us for our virtual visitor meetup, which will be after the service. Unitarian Universalism is not defined by creed or dogma, but is guided by principles that affirm the worth and dignity of every person and encourage an individual search for truth and meaning. We honor the wonder of existence and believe that we are all connected to each other and to the interdependent web of life. Our beliefs are drawn from scripture and science, nature and philosophy, personal experience and ancient tradition. We are an open, affirming, and welcoming congregation of diverse backgrounds, social locations, gender identities, ethnicities, sexual orientations, spiritualities, and philosophies of life. We're united in our desire to create a diverse, beloved community, to live the principles of our faith, and to serve the wider world. As we begin this morning, we want to acknowledge that our church building and the homes of most of our members are on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded land of the Tongva people, who live here and have cared for this land for thousands of years. This land was stolen from the Tongva by colonial settlers. We recognize and mourn the often deadly harm inflicted on the indigenous people of this country. We lift up their grace, their resilience, and their relationship to these sacred lands. Join us directly after our service for our virtual coffee hour on Zoom with a number of breakout room options with different discussion topics, conversations, and opportunities to get to know one another more deeply. Links will be posted in our UUSM Facebook group. Coming later in the month, to commemorate Earth Day, our UUSM choir and vocalists will be producing a concert called Rising Green, which will be streamed on our church Facebook and YouTube pages on April 23rd. More details are on our website. Remember to check our weekly email newsletters, which can keep you up to date about the latest events. Next week, you can check out various online open meditation workshops, our monthly board meeting, a meeting of the men's group for perspectives on Unitarian Universalism and masculinity, and more. Details about our events and ways to get involved are at our website, uusm.org, or our online newsletter at news.uusm.org. Signing up for our weekly e-newsletter on our website will have all the latest sent right to your inbox. Come now and let us worship together.
El amor es la enseñanza de esta iglesia.
Love is the doctrine of this church.
Buscar la verdad es su sacramento y el servicio es la oración.
The quest for truth is its sacrament and service is its prayer.
Vivir juntos en paz.
To dwell together in peace.
Buscar el conocimiento en la libertad.
To seek knowledge in freedom.
Servir a la humanidad en comunión.
To serve humankind in fellowship.
Así es como convenimos unos a otros.
Thus do we covenant with each other.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung through every land by every tongue.
Good morning. This morning we are going to talk about Ramadan. Now, Ramadan is a Muslim holiday that starts tomorrow. And we're going to talk about lanterns. Now, lanterns have become synonymous with Ramadan. And there are a lot of different stories about exactly how those lanterns became a part of the holiday. Sometimes there's even stories specific to how lanterns became specific to Ramadan in a certain country. But this story is considered to be maybe the truest of the true stories by many. Now, once upon a time, there is a caliph, kind of like a king, a ruler, if you will, who had a young son. But then his wife got sick and passed away, and their happy family became a little sad. And so the caliph threw himself into running his kingdom, meeting with ministers, meeting with farmers, hearing all of the tales of the land. And his young son threw himself into tutoring and playing, but he really missed his dad. Well, then the caliph got married, and so now his son was like, great. I still miss my mom, but we'll be a whole family. It'll be great, except his stepmother didn't seem to have a lot of time for him either. She was very busy doing her job. So the young boy got sadder and sadder and tried to get his father's attention, but it never really worked. And so he got sadder and sadder. And then one day, sitting outside of his room, he looked at his pet pigeon and was like, dude, we gotta go. We've got to run away. Nobody here loves us. No one pays us any attention. No one cares what happens to us. And so that night, the young prince took his pigeon and stole away into the jungle. And they walked, and they walked, and they walked some more, and they were getting very tired and thirsty, and they suddenly came upon a huge palace. The pigeon was very excited. The pigeon was very excited to build a nice little nest and settle down, but the young prince said, "Oh no, this is the ghoul's palace." But you know what? We've been walking all night, and we've got to sleep sometime. You know what? We'll sneak in, we'll get some sleep, drink some water, we'll slip out before the ghoul notices. Unfortunately for the prince, the ghoul was watching. And as soon as the boy stepped into a room, he was surrounded by golden bars. "Oh no, I'm in a cage!" And the ghoul said, "I know who you are. I know how busy your father is. I know how busy your stepmother is. No one cares. No one will miss you, and I'm very lonely. I'll keep you as my new pet." Now the prince began to panic because this was not his plan. He said, "You have to let me go. I'm just a kid, and I'm looking for somewhere to belong and for some adventure. You can't keep me as a pet." And the ghoul said, "You know what? I'll send your pigeon back. And if your father actually misses you, if he even notices you're gone, he'll follow the pigeon back and come get you. And if he doesn't, well then, I'll keep you here forever." The prince was not feeling full of hope in that moment. But the ghoul, true to his word, opened the window and sent off the pigeon. Now, back at the palace, the non-ghoul palace, the Caliph had been crying and praying every night. All he wanted was to see his son before the holy month of Ramadan began. But night after night, day after day, no sign of his son. But on the last night before Ramadan began, as he was praying and crying, he felt that his son was very near. He could feel it. And on an impulse, he went to the window and looked, and on the windowsill was the pigeon. The pigeon began to flap its wings, and the Caliph knew he had to follow this pigeon. But it was pitch black. The courtyards were dark, the streets were dark, the jungle was dark. Well, his sister, who also happened to be at the palace, had a brilliant idea. She says, well, what if everyone in the palace will all light candles and will light your way? Now, word spread throughout the entire kingdom, and very, very quickly, everyone came out with candles and lamps and lanterns, and they lit the way following the pigeon. It was a parade of lights, and the children sang songs, super excited about the beginning of Ramadan, and that they were going to go rescue the prince, and it was such a brightly lit festive procession, which is a fancy word for parade, to get to the prince. And at the ghoul's palace, the prince heard the singing and perked up. And then he could see the lights, and he knew they were coming. And the ghoul, ever lonely, knowing what it's like not to be wanted, said, well, I guess I was wrong. You are loved, and you are noticed, and you are missed. And he waved his hand, and the bars disappeared, and he said, you may go home. And so the prince ran towards the lights and towards the sound and the music, and when he saw his father, he threw himself into his arms, and they sang and danced all the way back home. And as a gift to the entire kingdom for coming out to help, the king gifted everyone with a golden lantern. And he had all of his ministers light the streets and the mosques and the marketplaces to honor all of the help that he'd been given by his kingdom to find his son. And so it is said that Ramadan marked the first time where children celebrated by lighting the way every single night of Ramadan with lanterns. Like I said, some people believe that is the truest of the true stories of the first lanterns of Ramadan. And that's our story for today. Bye.
Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí y al corazón cántale tu compasión. Sopla al volar, sube en la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arraigame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirring
of compassion blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free, Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
We continue to mourn the death and celebrate the life of our beloved Reverend Ernie Pipes. On May 1st at 1 p.m., this church will gather along with the larger community to celebrate the life of Ernie Pipes. Mark your calendars, because we want to all be there. Let us continue to remember the joys and sorrows of birth and life and death within our families, within our congregation, within our extended communities. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted. We need one another when we are afraid and in trouble. We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. We need one another in the hour of success, when we look for someone to share our triumphs. We need one another in the hour of defeat, when with encouragement we might endure and stand again. We need one another when we come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us. A blessing for risk takers and failures. Today we share in a blessing for losers, risk takers, all failures, far and wide. Blessed are they who fall in the mud, who jump with gusto and rip the pants, who skin the elbows and bruise the ego, for they shall know the sweetness of risk. Blessed are those who make giant mistakes, whose intentions are good but impact has injured, who know the hot sense of regret and ask for mercy, for their hearts will know the gift of forgiveness. Blessed are they who have seen a D or an F or a C or any letter less than perfect, who are painfully familiar with the red pen and the labels that say less than, for they know the wisdom in the imperfect. Blessed are they who try again, who dust off, who wash up, who extend the wish for peace, who return to sites of failure, who are dogged in their pursuit, for they will discover the secret to dreams. Blessed are they who refuse to listen to the naysayers, for their hearts will be houses for hope. Blessed are they who see beyond the surface of another, for they will be able to delight in the gift of compassion. Blessed are they who stop running the race to help a fellow traveler, who pick up the fallen, who stop for injured life, for they shall know the kindness of strangers. Blessed are they who wildly, boldly abandon winning, for they shall know the path of justice. It seems like life is a process of becoming a little person, becoming a bigger person, becoming an adult, becoming a professional of some sort, and if we are lucky, becoming a crone or a geezer. Metaphorically, the process might look like climbing up the side of a mountain. We get to the top, we celebrate arriving, having become what we aspired to be, and then we slide down the other side of the mountain. Again, if we are lucky, the slide is over a gentle, grassy slope. There seems to be tremendous intentionality as we are becoming a highly functioning adult, or as we assert our right to be mediocre. We measure our pace of becoming by inches that we grow, schools we attend, decisions we get to make, choices we must make. Sociologist Sarah Lawrence Lightfoot wrote a book called The Third Chapter, Passion, Risk, and Adventure in the 25 Years After 50. In it, she says we must develop a compelling vision of later life, one that does not assume a trajectory of decline over 50, but recognizes this as a time of potential change, growth, and new learning, a time when our courage gives us hope. It takes courage to become. It takes more courage to become a crone or geezer. Now, you may have cringed at those words, crone and geezer. We baby boomers are giving new meaning to those words. These words used to be used to dismiss us, to send the elders to their rooms where they would neither be seen nor heard. The crones and geezers of today are the wise ones. Not only are we living longer than our parents did, our bodies are stronger, our minds are more agile, and we have many more choices for what we become. So the slide down the hill is not necessarily a decline. It is a ride to somewhere else. It is an opportunity to become something more. Gerontologists tell us that as we age, we become caricatures of ourselves. So if you were thrifty in your youth, you may be a downright stingy geezer. If you were a bit anxious in your youth, you now may be too terrified to leave the house. If you were generous in your youth, you may have become a maven of charitable giving. If you were a rabble-rouser in your youth, you may now be a leader of social justice advocacy. The process of becoming is ongoing. We are never quite finished. Even when you might be ready to sit back in satisfaction, having crossed everything off your to-do list, you're not finished because something may happen in your family, in the world, in your soul that forces you to pivot and become yet again. Some aspects of ourselves become without our permission or cooperation. We become older, we become taller, we become grayer, we become shorter, whether we want to or not. For other things we must work to become. A path is presented and we walk that path, sometimes taking detours or side trips to become parents and partners and professionals. But what about the internal work? The parts of ourselves that we become only with even greater intentionality. When I was a little girl, there were two bigger girls I admired greatly. I wanted to be just like them. One was Annette Funicello. She was one of the first Mouseketeers on the Mickey Mouse Club in the 1950s. I can't remember now why I was so drawn to her. I do know that I kept track of Annette Funicello all of her life through her movies and records and fan magazines until she died in her 70s. I wanted to be a little bit like Annette, and I wanted to be a lot like my cousin Celeste. Celeste is just enough older than I am to be idolized. My cousin Celeste is the nice one. Of all my cousins, she would get the kindness award. Celeste is the one who keeps our secrets, who forgives us every time, who tells the truth in a way we can hear it, who is always kind, even to the people who are unkind to her. Celeste has watched me become all my life. She has loved me in a non-transactional way. She doesn't love me if or because, just simply and purely. Her love is a reflection of who she is, and her love for her younger cousin helped me to become who I am now. Celeste has been present at every major pivot in my life. When I finally left the commune I had been living in, Celeste was the first one to call to ask how I was adjusting. She made no judgmental, well, it's about time you left, but it was just a simple, loving question that she posed. She said, "So how are you doing now?" Throughout my life, she would call to see if I was okay. And in my younger drama-filled years, she called after every crisis, major and minor. Once when she called, I said, "Well, I must not be okay since you're calling." Celeste loved me into becoming. I wanted to become nice like Celeste. I wanted to become caring like Celeste. I wanted to become forgiving like Celeste. I wanted to become kind like my cousin Celeste. I still want to be like Celeste. It probably won't happen, but I aspire. Who helped you to become who you are? Who were the positive or negative influencers about whom can you say, "I want to be just like," or "I never am going to be like"? See, children work at becoming bigger. Big enough to sleep in a bed, big enough to dress themselves, big enough to go to school, big enough to stay up to watch one more TV program, big enough to get a phone, big enough to get a car, big enough to go away to college, big enough to get a real job. Then we work at becoming a professional, or becoming a perfect parent, or becoming at least a parent that does no permanent damage. In the process of becoming, we sometimes pivot and become something unexpected, like divorced or widowed or rich or unemployed. At other times, we stop working at becoming something else and we start focusing on becoming something more. This is when we pause on our metaphorical mountains or while making our way down the metaphorical hills. Dewey said, "We don't learn by experience. We learn by reflecting upon our experiences." So if we are constantly becoming, we need to sometimes pause to take a look. We need to stop to look at what we have become and why, and to see if we have become what we had intended to become, and to ask ourselves, is it still working for you? Becoming is the realm of poets. E. Cummings said, "To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best night and day to make you everybody else means to fight the hardest battle, which any human being can fight and never stop fighting. If you don't have a sense of who you are or who you are becoming, take a look at how you spend your money or on what you spend your time. Even during these pandemic times, your values will be evident in your use of discretionary time and money. It's not evident to you, then notice what you dream about, what you're thinking about, what you're worrying about. How you are in the world says much about who you have become, because we are what we do repeatedly. Novelist Mark Helprin offers another way of looking at becoming. He says, "And you will know exactly who you are forever by knowing what it is that you love." If you haven't yet become who you want to be, Carl Jung encourages us to stay close to anything that makes you glad you are alive. Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. If you're not where you want to be or where you think you ought to be, remember it's a journey. Now, I suggested climbing up one mountain and trudging down a hill. Your life may have a different trajectory. It may be hill after hill after hill. It may be a free fall into a dark night. However you move through your life, or life moves around you, you are becoming something. I encourage you to be something on purpose, which sometimes means letting go, detaching from the idea of who you think you must be. Rumi says, when you let go of who you are, you become who you might be. So don't be discouraged if it feels like you are spinning in circles, or if you keep getting the same lesson over and over, because perhaps you are becoming a master at doing something or being something. Perhaps the universe is giving you opportunities to put in your 10,000 hours toward mastery. So instead of repetition, moving repeatedly in a circle, think of yourself moving along a spiral where it feels like a circle, but when you get to where you started, you're actually in a different place. You may be familiar with the poem by T.S. Eliot. What we call the beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time and know who we have become.
Our practice here at UUSM is to dedicate half of our non-pledge Sunday offerings to organizations doing work in the world that advance our principles. UUSM's generous congregation supports our church community, and together we uplift the reach and impact of vital organizations doing work we could not do on our own. This month, half of our Sunday offerings will go to UUMFE, Unitarian Universalist Ministry for Earth. With your support, we can help to empower bold action, partnership, and connections to promote environmental and climate justice through UUMFE's campaigns. There are 3 ways to give: over text, through our website, or by mailing a check. Using your smartphone, text 844-982-0209 with the donation amount and the code for where the funds will be posted. A brief registration form will be sent to you and explained if this is your first time giving in this manner, but it is very simple each time afterwards. To make a generous congregation contribution, use code GCC or use the QR code that you see on your screen. On our website, you can make a one-time donation or set up recurring payments for your pledge or for another fund. Please consider supporting the mission of our church and the Unitarian Universalist Ministry for Earth. Your giving makes a big difference.
I wonder, I wonder, I wonder, why are we so swept up in tempests of our own making? I wonder, why are we so swept up in pride, anger, desire, fear, pride, anger, desire, fear, pride.
Are the challenges of a normal
The challenges of a normal
not sufficient in
not sufficient in themselves? I wonder that we must needless Saturn burdens. I shake my head and wonder, and I wonder, and wonder,
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born rises and sings to the universe. Each child that's born a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Each child that's born a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
This service is over. And now our service to the world continues. Go now, go in peace, and keep on becoming.